A Nazi, a crackhead, and a journalist walk into a motel room, and then they have an hour and a half long conversation about how the Nazi isn't actually a Nazi, and then at the end of it, they shake hands and call each other American brothers.
All right, American brothers. Thank you guys so much
Absolutely.
for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Good job, guys.
Right, so that's essentially what happened in this clip, and I want to talk about it, because it kind of pisses me off that everyone who I agree with politically on the left side of the aisle seems to be fucking retarded when it comes to interpreting people's speech and evaluating what's going on when a person says something to you. All right, so for example, there was one moment in this interview where Hunter is kind of trying his best to hold Nick to task for the cookie comment that he made about the Holocaust. If you don't remember that, I'll play that for you right now.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
Okay, so what he's doing here in this clip is in a pretty edgy and subversive way saying, I don't believe that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, And one thing I should say before we continue is that I support Nazis' right to express that view. I think you should be perfectly free to say, I don't think it was 6 million, I think it was 300,000, 200,000, whatever the fuck the Jews. Go crazy. Go stupid. I don't give a shit. But what I do take issue with is the fact that so-called journalists and political actors who should be smart enough to tell when you're full of shit and that you're lying about what your views actually are just let you get away with a lie, So, here's a perfect example, all right? Hunter says, why don't you take that back? It's an issue that you said that. And then Nick's response to that is that it was a joke.
I can think of about 4 things that I really wish you would take back right now. But
Like
what?
what?
The cookies in the oven?
Well, it's a joke.
It's just a joke. That's another thing that fucking pisses me off a lot, all right? It's when niggas who want to say some shit with their chest don't actually say it with their chest. They'll say, the veiled version of it, the thing that allows them to have enough plausible deniability in front of an audience that doesn't know what the fuck is going on. They'll make the joke, right? And then when you press them on the joke, they'll be like, but it was a joke. As if the joke didn't convey any true, sincerely held underlying propositional commitment. The intent behind the joke is to cast doubt on the official narrative and the numbers. And again, I've already said, Nazis, go crazy. Go stupid. I don't give a fuck. Fuck the all right? I'll say that. But why is it that people who should know better, people who are professional consumers and analysts of information, don't push them on that and say, well, why did you make the joke? What underlying attitude were you trying to express by making the joke? Why does the analysis just stop at, oh, it was a joke? And then look at what this fucking crackhead does in response to the joke.
But it's not, Nick. My wife is Jewish. My son is Jewish. No, Nick. I promise you. Don't get mad.
Nick says it's a joke. And then Hunter, in response, says, no, but Nick, you gotta, my son's Jewish. My wife's, who gives a fuck about your Jewish wife and kid? Look, again, in fairness to the Jews for a second, I understand what you went through, and I understand that you wish other people had the decency to empathize with that suffering, but at this moment in history, no one gives a fuck, bro. It's just not the move to do this lecturing sanctimonious bullshit of but there's intergenerational trauma and diversity is our strength. And again, you're doing this from a place of thinking that the person who you're talking to actually gives a shit about what you had to say and that they're engaging with you in good faith. When really what he's doing is just laundering his reputation on his platform, right? He's trying to present himself as this precocious young man who knows how to speak like a silver-tongued devil. And then, on occasion, he'll be taken out of context. And he's very grateful to people like Andrew and Hunter for giving him this platform to clear the air and make it known that
Yeah, I think that, I'm somebody who, I think like you, actually, maybe we have this in common, is kind of pigeonholed in a certain way for things that we've done in the past or things that we've said.
Yeah, I'm a crackhead.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm racist, right?
I got pigeonholed there. Mine is true, yeah.
Yeah, well, mine's a little true. Maybe a little, no. But yeah, so I think it'd be good to clear up some of the misrepresentations and put out something accurate.
So what do you think is the most misrepresented thing about you?
Well, I think really the whole image everybody has about me.
You know, when you mentioned me, I think on a recent show, you said you want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Yeah.
And that's how everybody knows me. Everybody thinks of me as a white supremacist Nazi, and I don't think that's really true at all. I think that we definitely have different values. I mean, you're more from the left, I'm more from the right, but I don't think I'm a hater. I'm not a hateful person. You know, we disagree on fundamental issues, and even sometimes it gets heated, and we yell at each other, but that we do ultimately want the best for each other. We love each other. We want the country to succeed, and I think that's a starting point for any solution and any conversation.
Nah, guys, I just love everyone. I love all Americans. I don't have any real issue with anyone, which is like not true. Like, bro, just think about it logically, all right? Let's say I was a genuinely hateful motherfucker, all right? If I was, right? If I really did deep in my heart want to kill all the, do you think I'd openly make such a confession in front of millions of fucking people? No, right? Like, I'd have to lie about it, and I'd have to make it seem like that's not what I was ultimately up to. And that's exactly what this does on every fucking platform that he's on. All the retarded so-called journalists, they keep hitting him with the sanctimonious bullshit of, oh, but you're a monster. Hitler was bad. It's so reprehensible how you could say such a thing, how you could joke about the Holocaust. And like, why don't you dumbasses understand that that's not the way to counter this ideology? That's not the way you make the shit not seem cool to the losers that actually believe in it. The real way to do it is talk like me, all right? Talk like a real nigga and affirm everyone's right to say what the fuck they want to say. Tell them, all right, look, you Nazi. I agree, right? I agree that it's fucked up that you don't get to openly cast doubt on the death toll that was caused by your supreme leader, right? So let's overturn these Holocaust denialism laws. Let's have an honest, open debate about it. Actually, we don't even have to do that. We don't even have to debate about it. We can just put the evidence out there, let it be as one-sided as it is, and neutralize these ability to make the claim that, look, the system is against us. The Jews that are controlling everything from behind the scenes, they're unfairly shaping the terrain of this debate. And, yeah, that's our real motivation for caring about this number. It has nothing to do with an animus against. It's just that, why is this the one atrocity throughout history that gets such special protection in so many European countries' legal systems? And that's a fair point. So, yeah, I don't know if any of this was all that coherent, but the one point that I'd like to leave you with is that this moralizing, grandstanding, holier-than-thou orientation that people like Piers and Hunter and anyone else who thinks that they occupy some moral high ground over like Nick.
And what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay. And that's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
You need to realize how fucking foolish and naive you seem in front of these people. These are genuinely intelligent, sophisticated, tech-savvy young gentlemen who have an affinity for Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin and all the bad guys throughout history, and to treat them as if they're talking to you from a position of sincerity and open-mindedness is retarded, right? Like just play the receipts in front of them and let them squirm. Let them actually defend their positions, but like, don't do this bullshit of, oh yeah, we got to find common ground. We love each other. Well, let's hug it out as like, that's bullshit because they don't believe it. They don't believe it deep in their hearts, right? And you'd be fucking think that they believe it deep in their hearts.
Do you know what's happening in Europe and the United States? The white population is being genocided. Where there used to be pillars and cathedrals, where there used to be order, where there used to be science and reason, now there is chaos and death and crime and superstition. And that is because all of these countries were white, were Christian, and now they're not. You want to talk about a Holocaust? We're in the middle of a Holocaust. We want the fathers back in the home. We want God back in society. We want the nation to be strong. And yes, by the way, we want the country to be majority white.
Maybe I'll be careful with what I say. We want to open our arms and embrace people to propel this message. We want power to change society the way we want it to change. But we are not going to give up the message until we're being heard. I'm not ready to put it all away and say, all right, everybody, let's now just be Democrats. You know what? After all this time, now that I'm grown up, now that I've matured, now that I'm no longer a stupid kid, now I realized all along it was really just about the economy. And I was just taking it out on women and transgenders and illegal immigrants and black people. And we do have a Jewish oligarchy. We do have a black crime epidemic. We do have a double standard with race. We have far too many illegal immigrants. As a matter of fact, we have far too many foreigners here. Feminism is out of control. That's why our fertility rate is collapsing. That's why family formation isn't happening. These are all real problems, and they're going to be addressed.
And again, let's just think about this strategically, all right? You're a piece of shit. who wants bad things, who wishes bad things for other people because of who they are. Not anything that they can change about themselves, but their identity as a person.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty. I'm far more concerned about that than I am about even non-white people or mass migration. These people that are communing with demons and engaging in this sort of witchcraft and stuff, and these people that are suppressing the name Christ and suppressing Christianity, they must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. This is God's country. This is Jesus's country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
If you want bad things to happen to your target, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to speak about your target in public? You're not going to say it out in the open. You're going to be discreet, diplomatic, use a lot of veiled language and innuendo and ironic, subversive methods of communication, make yourself seem a lot cooler and sexier than you actually are, and that's how you build a movement. And if you're a responsible broker of information, you'll take that into account in your presentation of these motherfuckers online, right? Like, you won't just say, all right, yeah, you've heard about this crackhead and you've heard about this Nazi, now just watch. Feast your eyes as we let both of these into a motel room and just let it rip, like they're both just a couple of average Joes who, they're just like me and you, when clearly one of them is not. I can kind of empathize with Hunter, you know, I've had my moments too. I've never been a crackhead who's had his dick posted online, but like, and honestly, I can even see Nick's appeal. You know, like, I can see myself having a civil conversation with Nick and come away from it thinking, damn, bro, this is so much more chill than all the fucking that I was in school with at BU. By the way, fun fact about me, I went to BU as well. Unfortunately, I didn't also get to build a multi-million-dollar platform off my anti-Semitism and white supremacy as a result. But yeah, such is life. Different strokes for different folks. Anyway, point being, I hate it when pussies like Nick... Actually, I shouldn't call him a pussy. Like, this is a deliberate move. You know, he knows that it's rhetorically effective to hide your actual positions behind the excuse of, oh, but it was just a joke. And on that note, I'd like to leave you with a joke that I wanted to make back when Nick had his appearance on Piers Morgan, but I didn't get to. The joke is, like, on this appearance on Piers Morgan's show, Piers reminded Nick about a story that he told on his podcast where he relayed that his father would decide where the family would go to dinner on any given night based on the skin colors of the people who would frequent those specific establishments. So, like, I think it was Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and, you know, those go-to spots for the white girls, like, whatever it was. Apparently, it's a lot of there, right?
I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is... do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And I'll
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think everybody
I'm not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
So Piers is telling the story to Nick, and Nick is getting pissed off because he knows that it makes his dad seem like a racist asshole, and he's trying to turn himself into the victim of the situation by being like, "Oh my God, how could you besmirch the honor of my great father?" My racist ass father on the basis of a story that I shared with you in confidence, as if he didn't say it in front of a fucking microphone in a public forum in front of his audience. And Piers is trying to explain to this fucking idiot that, like, look, bro, I'm just asking you about a story that you shared unbidden, like in front of your own audience. Why is it unfair for me to ask you?
When I read that anecdote, it's just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
You said this. We're looping. You said this
No,
already.
but you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, this stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay. So when you told
no.
the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying?
No.
Well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat at Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food. Hang on, can I? What's with the interruptions? Can I explain?
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist, and I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay, people can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay?
The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he could get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all
Well, then let's leave him out of it.
Well,
let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out there.
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin colour of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say, you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, you know, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then do you accept that you shouldn't talk?
Okay,
listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show? And you shouldn't tell...
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not.
So
it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, you're
that's
being
fine.
malicious.
Okay, that's fine.
And Nick goes into the whole routine of, okay, well, yeah, there's a political culture in America where if you believe certain things, you'll lose your job. Like, as soon as someone shares some unsubstantiated story about you, your employer is going to end your fucking life. Which, by the way, he's right about that. And it's another reason that I want to support more people saying, like, of all colors, so that we can neutralize that fucking talking point. You know, like, we shouldn't live in a society where merely saying words, syllables, end your fucking life, professionally and personally and socially, like, in all these different respects. But that point aside, Nick tries to turn it into a thing of like, oh, you're trying to get my father to lose his job, like this honest, God-fearing man who happens to be racist. Like, he tries to write it off again as just a joke. It's just a joke. Like, there's nothing more morally interesting or significant that needs to be explained about the story, right? So yeah, here's my joke about Nick and his desire to defend his father from the unscrupulous attacks of Piers Morgan Uncensored.
You know fools that ever smoke meth?
Yeah, my dad. You fucking dumb bitch. The fuck, bitch? You fucking knew that. You fucking piece of shit. Terrorist motherfucker. Fuck you. Fucking radical Muslim drug addict bitch. Your fucking mom smells like shit. Like fucking sobaco, bitch. I just said, mi papa. Es mi padre, es mi padre. Gracias a Dios. Oh my fucking God.
Alright, that's all I got for now. If you're sick of people who don't know how to analyze information, if you're sick of being lied to, if you want to know how to get a grip and understand contextually what's going on, or, you know, just fuck around and have a good time with me, feel free to visit me in my room at wissamsroom.substack.com. We can have a lot of fun together. I definitely hope you'll join me. If you're a Nazi, honestly, I'd like to talk to you if you are a Nazi. Like, I'd like to have an actual, honest conversation where you don't do this pussyfooted bullshit of just playing hide the ball with what you actually believe. Like, I want to know what you believe. And yeah, I'm open to having a conversation with you on that point. And if you're not a Nazi, you're all the more welcome. You know, like, I don't fuck with Nazis and their ideological commitments. I'm much more of a lover than a hater. You know, I like all people equally. I try not to judge people based on the color of their skin or their national or racial origins or any of that bullshit. And yeah, I hope to bring a different flavor to social and cultural commentary when it comes to these topics, because I think the existing flavor that we've gotten up till this point has produced masterpieces like Nick. You know, like, we don't get a good enough response to this kind of subversive, edgy, cool, sexy communication. All we get is this, like, hand-wringing that says, oh, you're a bad person, blah, 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 like, I'm so much better than you. And I can understand why Nazis don't find that compelling. So, yeah, that's my view on this whole situation. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if you fuck with the vibes. Pay me a visit and I'll keep it real. Thank you for watching me talk my shit and letting me share the way that I feel. See you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.